Well, hello everyone and welcome to this year's Safeguarding Update training. This session is for anybody who missed the training session at the start of this academic year. I'd like to start, if I may, with just posing a quick question which I would like you to think about for 10-15 seconds or so. Why may a child not tell us that something is wrong? So there are a number of reasons as why children might not be keen to tell us that something is wrong, and that's why it's absolutely critical that we are very vigilant and that in particular we notice the change in behaviour of children. So a few reasons here coming up on the screen. They may worry about being blamed, they may fear the threat of any repercussions, they may understand what the implications of them disclosing something to us are, and they may fear that. They might not be able to communicate with us, or they might not have the vocabulary which tells us what is going on for them in their lives. So that's particularly relevant to those with a special educational need, or indeed those down in the prep schools. They might not recognise the experience that they're having is actually abuse, and they may have become normalised to it. So that these may then just pop out during a PSHE session, or if we're overhearing something on a bus, for example. They might not trust us to do the right thing with that information, so it's really important that we build trust with our pupils and that they know that if they do tell us something, that we will take it seriously and we'll act upon it. Very, very rare that a child would acknowledge that something wasn't going well for them at home and them not actually want us to do anything with that information. As much as they might say they don't want us to pass it on, the reality is that they tell us for a reason. They may feel responsible for whatever it is that has happened to them, and they may feel that they have caused it, which of course they haven't. And they may feel that there's a lack of opportunity to be heard by a responsible adult who will actually listen carefully and act upon what they're being told. And then finally, as I said, that they may be a feeling from them that we're not actually listening to them and that we won't do anything about it. And that's absolutely not the case at Surbiton. If we hear anything or see anything that doesn't feel right to you, it is a duty of you to report it to us. So the bottom line really is that I would ask that you notice when things are different, and that when you see that something is different, you then know who to tell and how to tell them. And hopefully the next few minutes will just go through that with you. So this year we have three key sources of guidance that we must adhere to. The first is working together to safeguard children. That was renewed in January of 2023. Keeping Children Safe in Education 2024, that came into being on the 2nd of September of this year. And then finally for us, we have the United Learning Safeguarding and Child Protection Policies and Procedures. So much of our policy is written actually by United Learning, and we then just doctor it for our particular setting. So these are the three core pieces of guidance that we must adhere to. With regards to Keeping Children Safe in Education 2024, as I say, it's just come into to being statutory guidance on the 2nd of September. There is limited changes to it from last year, and we'll go through the changes shortly. And some of those changes are technical, and they are still under review for next year. So we'll have a look at the key changes that affect us at Surbiton High School for this year. The first is there is an addition to the definition of safeguarding, and that is the highlighted section here, where safeguarding and promoting the welfare of children is defined as providing help and support to meet the needs of children as soon as the problems emerge. So there is now a duty on us to ensure that we're picking up on any problems as soon as they happen, and that we're trying to help manage those problems early. So we're not just waiting for the problem to become a big safeguarding issue. Whenever we have a concern, we are acting upon that and trying to put in some early help for the children. The second is with regards to those who are missing in education or are persistently absent. The definition or the guidance now includes the sentence, all unexplainable and or persistent absence from education. So the guidance now understands or highlights the fact that a child who is persistently absent from education, that could have very much negative or very negative effects on their development. There's also been a bit of an addition to the term abuse and neglect. It is now referred to throughout the document as abuse, neglect and exploitation. So very much front and centre now, an understanding that children may be exploited and that actually is a form of or is as significant as abuse or neglect for that child. And there is also guidance that now states that children witnessing the ill treatment of others has been added to the definition of abuse. So just a few minor changes, but important changes nonetheless. Just a reminder to you that it's important that at school we're able to recognise the signs and symptoms of abuse, and there are 4 different types of abuse: physical, sexual, emotional and neglect, and that it is important for us as teachers and those working with children in schools that we are able to acknowledge the signs and the symptoms and understand those. So the next slide is just going to ask you to think again for 10-15 seconds. During the inset session we did this in pairs, but obviously if you've got a piece of paper or something, you're able just to jot down your thoughts quickly. That would be ideal, and I'll give you 20 seconds then to think about the possible indicators of emotional abuse. So what may we see in terms of the child's behaviours or indeed any physical indicators for this, and I'll just give you 15 seconds or so to mull that over. So there are a number of different factors. This list is not exhaustive at all, but these are things that we should be aware of in terms of changes in behaviour. So behavioural may be for a child being very nervous and rocking or constantly fiddling and twisting hair, unwillingness or an inability to play, or worried about making mistakes and worried, if they don't get what 50% in a test, what will happen at home. So parents putting undue pressure on their children to do well in tests and things, that is something that we absolutely have to be aware of at school. More obvious indicators could be self-harm, sudden speech disorders, or an excessive lack of confidence, or a change indeed of behaviour. So a child used to be confident, but now we've seen a real decline in their self-confidence and possible attention, and an inability to cope with praise. Sometimes those who are being emotionally abused don't get much praise, and so they actually find it hard to manage that when it does come their way in schools. So again, just because a child is unwilling to play doesn't mean that they are being emotionally abused, but what we ask is that you notice change in patterns of behaviour of children. There has been a change to the definition of extremism, and so that is now in front of you. Extremism is the promotion or advancement of an ideology based on violence, hatred or intolerance that aims to negate or destroy the fundamental rights and freedoms of others, or undermine, overturn or replace the UK's system of liberal parliamentary democracy and democratic rights, or intentionally create a permissive environment for the others to achieve the results in one or two. So there is now an understanding that extremism doesn't just have to be the actual removal of someone's fundamental rights and the doing of it. It could also be creating an environment by which others are able to carry out extremist behaviour. So that's very much been in the news over the past summer, unfortunately. There's also been an update to the definition of radicalisation, and that is that the definition now is the process of a person legitimising support for or use of terrorist violence. So that's just a change to the terminology in the definition of radicalisation. Thought it useful to note that these are the most recent figures we've been able to get hold of, but there were 804 referrals to the Channel case. So this is where there has been a referral for concern that a young person is being radicalised. And in 2021, 2022, there are 804 referrals. Interestingly, 42% of those referrals, so just shy of 350, were for extreme right-wing radicalisation. And again, that's very much been in the news recently. So the vast majority of extremism and radicalisation is that involving the extreme right. Just a reminder that it is your legal obligation to report to the police where you fear a child may have been subjected to or is likely to be subjected to female genital mutilation. It is the only thing at school that the safeguarding team is unable to report on your behalf. What we ask for is if you have any concern regarding FGM, you treat it as a normal safeguarding concern at school. So you would fill out a form and bring it to one of the team. But we would then also ask that you contact the police, and we'll help you to do that. But it is your legal obligation as a professional working in a school setting to report to the police where you have a concern regarding FGM. It's also the case that the new guidance or the guidance has issued some new information regarding those working with boys in particular, so those in our boys in the boys prep, that it is possible that staff may encounter FGM related issues regarding a girl in the family of a boy. So if you have any concern regarding a sibling, a boy, you overhear a boy comes to disclose something regarding his sister or a close family relative, it is your legal obligation then to follow that through as if it were a girl at Surbiton High School. So again, I would ask that you would treat that as a safeguarding concern. You would come to tell a member of the safeguarding team, but it would also be your obligation to contact the police in that instance. So that this is just a slight change in addition to the guidance for this year. There is some guidance for the safeguarding leadership at the school regarding record keeping and just making sure that it is accurate, and also that when we don't contact children's services following a concern being raised, that we have a written account of why we have not done this, just to ensure that our decision making is correct. So just thought I'd walk us through what happens if a child discloses to us that they are being abused or that we have a concern regarding a child being abused. So I would ask that you listen carefully to what they are saying, that you let them know that they've done absolutely the right thing in telling you, that you are absolutely explicit in letting them know that it's not their fault and that you will take the matter seriously. Please don't ever confront the alleged abuser, so we mustn't contact home if the concern is raised about home. Explain to them what you will do next, that you will have to tell a member of the safeguarding team, and that in an ideal world you would let the child know which member of the safeguarding team you are going to tell. So that's what to do if you have a concern. With regarding the context of Surbiton High School, thought it would just be interesting for you to see and to hear what happened last year. So last year there were 162 safeguarding concern forms completed by members of staff at our school. That's not far off one a day when we look at the number of days that we are in session 4. On your screen, you can see the most common reasons as to or for the safeguarding concern forms. So self-harm is the most commonly reported concern by staff at Surbiton High School. In the prep schools, it's home life. That's very much the case. So the concern there being about potentially children witnessing arguments at home following divorce and the like. So in the senior school, it's self-harm and eating disorders that are the number one concerns raised. In the prep schools, it's for home life. We can see these are the number of concern forms that were raised or concerns that were raised in the different schools. There's no real pattern in the prep schools, and thankfully the numbers are quite low. And you can see here the categories for the prep schools. So the main category, the main concern was for abuse, and again that was to do with witnessing of abuse or excessive chastisement, in particular in Key Stage 1 in the preps. In the senior school, the numbers are much higher, but then again, there are far more children in the school, so that's to be expected. Interestingly, Year 10 is the year group that per pupil had caused the most concern last year, and so that's something that we have to look very carefully on this year. So the current Year 10 is the year group that we are particularly concerned about. And if we look at when the safeguarding concern forms are completed, we can see that November tends to be the busiest month for the safeguarding team. That's no surprise really, because it is the month that where we tend to be in school for the most days. It's also the month where the children, they've come back after half term. The nights have drawn in. For some, there are exams just round the corner. Things are getting a little bit more stressful for years 11 through to 13. So it's no surprise that November is a particularly difficult month, but it is worth us noting that for some, November is particularly difficult. And then we can see that the numbers for the lower years tend to increase as we move through the school year. Again, that's just because we become more aware of concerns. And with regards to the sixth form, the numbers last year in the summer term were very, very low. Again, that's to be expected, mainly because the pupils are out of school more. And also we are far more aware then of the concerns, and so staff have already raised those with us. I just thought it would be useful to remind you of the definitions of sexual violence and the definitions of sexual harassment. Thankfully, here at Surbiton, sexual violence is a rarity. It does happen, so we do absolutely need to be aware of the signs and the symptoms. Far more likely, though, is sexual harassment for our girls, and it is important to know that it can have a significant impact on the pupil's development. So it is something that we are very aware of and have to be very aware of. And it is really important that we must acknowledge that it could happen at our school, that we don't accept that it is banter or just part of growing up. It's absolutely not. That we are very quick to challenge inappropriate behaviour, and that we reassure the victim and we let them know that they've done the right thing in telling us. So again, please just be aware of that. I will leave you just for 30 seconds to read this screen if you would. And then with regards reporting a disclosure, if you do have a concern and you are a member of staff who has access to our MIS, then I would ask that you complete the pupil safeguarding concern form as soon as is practically possible, and you bring that to a member of the safeguarding team, and we will then take that from you. Please don't log it on MIS yourself, we will do that. Please don't contact the parents, we will do that. So if you have any concern regarding a child, please go to the Common Docs, to the safeguarding folder, and in there you will find the correct reporting form. If you have a concern about a member of staff, again, there is a form for you to fill out. You ought to report that to the principal. In the principal's absence, you can report that to either Matthew Close in the senior school, Louise McCabe-Arnold in the girls' prep, or Chasey Chong in the boys' prep. So please just make sure that you do that. If you have a concern about the principal, then you will need to contact Fiona Bolton at United Learning via email, and you can get her email from the safeguarding policy. Every office ought to have a safeguarding procedures poster. Please can I ask that you ensure that is the case, especially those satellite offices, maybe the boathouse, for example. But it is really important that you have that readily available should you need it. And also a reminder that the safeguarding procedures can be found on your iPad and, as I say, in the Common Docs area. We have split the safeguarding teams across the school into the senior school, the boys' prep and the girls' prep. This is the senior school safeguarding team led by myself, Matthew Close. If I am not in school, then John or Sinead would assume the role of DSL. But you can talk to any of the members of staff in the safeguarding team if you have a concern. In the girls' prep, the team is led by David. Again, if David's not in school, you can, of course, talk to any of the safeguarding officers on the screen. And then in the boys' prep, Sally is the DSL for the boys' prep. Likewise, though, if she's not in school, Tracy, myself, or Sinead, or indeed any of the safeguarding teams across the school. But Sally ought to be your first port of call, please. Finally, just a reminder that it is a legal obligation that you have read Keeping Children Safe in Education. That ought to read September 2024, not 22, and that you signed to say that you've done so. It is also important that you watch this video and any subsequent videos that are produced, because they will form part of your regular update training. So really important that you watch and engage with those, please. You must have your level 1 update training completed. That's completed every 3 years. If you receive an email from Nicola Davies asking you to do it, please, you must. Please don't delay with that. It is vitally important that your safeguarding training is up to date. Were we to be inspected, it's one of the first things that an inspector would look at is the safeguarding training log for all staff. So please do look out for an email from Nicola Davies and act on that when you receive it. And then finally from me, please don't think, what if I'm wrong? Never worry about being wrong. Never worry about putting in a safeguarding concern form and it being wrong. If you are wrong, no harm will be caused. Please always think, what if I'm right? Many thanks for your time, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in school in the months to come.